In this video, I want to talk about fishing a Ned rig. We all know how effective a Ned rig is at not only getting a lot of bites, but also catching some really big fish. I know that over the years though, there have been some mistakes that I've made with a Ned rig, and there's a few tips that I think can really help you to catch more with this technique. Now, before we talk about that, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. A lot of you already know, but I just came out with new shorts over at Fin Fishing. These are the duck shorts. They are literally water resistant, extremely durable, they're stretchy, they're lightweight. In my opinion, they are the best shorts out there on the market, not only for fishing, but for just everyday activities. And right now I am running an introductory sale on them. So I'm gonna leave a link down below in the description. I know it's November, but if you guys wanna check out those shorts, hit that link down below in the description. All right, let's talk about Ned rigs. And I think a lot of people have the same story when it comes to fishing a Ned rig. When they first saw it, they're like, that is the stupidest thing that I've ever seen. And ever since then, people have realized how good of a bait it is. And it works in so many situations. But with all that being said, I do think that a few things have changed with the Ned rig over the years. Now, the first thing, I think there's three big things that I really want to talk about, maybe even a fourth, but the first thing that I really want to talk about is that I have really started to use a lot more or different Ned rig baits these days. I think that the standard 2.75 inch Z-Man TRD, which is like the one that a lot of us picked up, it still catches fish. But I have started to see that the bass have just kind of grown accustomed. I feel like in a lot of high pressure situations, the bass have actually grown accustomed to kind of that size of bait. And I've always talked about this a lot on this channel, that anytime that you can do things that are a little bit different, it can really pay off in catching a lot more fish or a lot bigger fish. Now, what I mean by that is, these days, I really start to experiment with the size of the plastic that I'm putting on a Ned rig. I don't always just feed on that 2.75 inch anymore. Sometimes I actually go with a lot bigger. This is kind of the thing that I've done a lot lately, is use bigger Ned rigs, plastic baits, 4-inch baits, 5-inch baits, a little bit bigger baits. I feel like I have got a lot, I feel like I get a lot more bites with those big baits these days. I've also done the exact opposite. I've cut a 2.75 inch in half. So literally it's an inch long. It's teeny, it's tiny, and I have seen that to also perform really well. I truly believe that when you fish high pressured situations, bass really get accustomed to a size of a bait. And so I think really going on the extremes, really tiny things or really big things, can help you to get more bites. It's definitely something that I do a lot when it comes to the Ned rig. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that 2.75 inch isn't gonna go out there and catch bass, but when you are dealing with those high pressured situations, just give it a try. Maybe you don't always catch more fish, but maybe the fish that you catch are bigger. It's just something that I always think to experiment with, because anytime in bass fishing, you can just think a little bit differently. Man, it can really pay off. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is that the least amount of action that you can impart in a Ned rig is typically the best. Typically, I have found that the slower I can work that bait, the better that it performs. And I've seen this, again, a lot more over the last couple of years, where when I'm dragging that bait along the bottom or hopping that bait along the bottom, I am really, like, it sometimes is annoying because it will take a cast a long time, but I feel that I get a tremendous amount more bites by working that bait extremely slow, especially when you fish around smallmouth. I don't know what it is, but I do think that smallmouth, I don't know what the speed is. It seems like they either want something super fast or something like so slow it is painstaking to fish. But anyways, I do think that the least amount of action you can put on a Ned rig, the better it is. And something that's really important to pay attention to when it comes to that is actually the length of the rod that you are using. This is something that I didn't realize when I first started fishing not only a Ned rig, but a lot of different plastic baits is that, you know, the longer your rod is, if you, for example, if you're using a 6-foot 6-inch rod or a 7-foot 6-inch rod, so a foot difference, if I move that rod like this in my hand, I'm not doing anything different with this movement right here, kind of dragging it or hopping across the bottom. But there's a foot difference in the top of that rod. And so how much that rod moves will really impact how kind of far off the bottom that bait will come. A long time ago, I used to use a 7-foot 6-inch rod a lot when I fished Ned rigs because I like to make a long bomb cast with that thing. But if I am hopping the bait, I really realize that I had to make very small movements because me just going like this would shoot that bait way off the bottom, and it just looks unnatural to a bass, especially when you're trying to a lot of times mimic a crayfish or a crawdad or whatever you call it, a crawfish. So anyways, be really conscious of the length of your rod. I've actually started to go to a lot shorter rods just to help me kind of not impart so much action on that bait. You know, a lot of times not only am I dragging it, but I think that even when you hop it, you know, using a 7-foot 9-inch rod, that's what I typically use, or a 7-foot rod, I do think that that will help you. But it's, again, I'm not saying you can't use a 7.6, you just have to be very conscious of how you are working that bait and if you are imparting too much action on that bait. Now, the third thing that I want to talk about and final thing is the weight of your Ned head is everything. I truly believe that this is one of the biggest components that will either help you to get a lot more bites or help you to not get as many bites. Now, the first thing that you have to think about when it comes to the weight of your Ned head, the actual jig head itself, is the wind, because the wind is going to greatly deter what you are going to use. You know, if you're out there and it's fairly windy, a lot of times you simply have to fish a little bit heavier head in order to maintain contact with the bottom. You know, it's just, there's nothing you can really do, but there's nothing you can do about that. But I do believe that maintaining that bottom contact will allow you to be able to catch more fish because you are feeling everything that is down there better. Now, on the opposite end of things, I always think that with a Ned rig, the lightest weight that you can get away with, you're typically going to get more bites. Now again, if it's windy, sometimes you just have to step it up. But if it's not that windy, if you have a little slick, calm conditions out there or just a little chop on the water, the lightest bait that you can get away with, the more bites that you will get. The other thing with that is that having a really light bait, it forces you to slow down, which I think really helps you to get more bites. So guys, those are the Ned rig tips that I have for you. Some things that, you know, mistakes that I have made. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know down below. Also, don't forget to check out those fin fishing shorts, and I will see you guys tomorrow.